Hello to you, Mr. Lynch. Thank you for joining us. What an absolute mess.
Well, it's a mess created by grant shaps and government policy. Now, we could get a solution to this dispute. Grant shaps can come to the table if he wants. I'm not particularly bothered. But if he wants to come to the table, he'd be welcome, as long as he comes in a framework of goodwill. What he needs to do, really, is allow the management of the train operating companies and Network Rail the licence to get on with negotiating. At the minute, he's dictating what they say, he's dictating what they can spend, and he's dictating that they must make unreasonable changes in our industry, which includes, for instance, closing every ticket office in Britain. It includes last night's statutory notification of compulsory redundancies, 2,900 on track maintenance. And it includes a pay policy that's making people all across Britain poorer. Some of our members have not had a pay rise for the third anniversary now. We can resolve that if we've got a proper negotiating framework. But the fact is that grant shaps Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson are dictating the terms of this dispute. Now, they can either facilitate a settlement or they can block one. At the moment, they're blocking one. They're telling lies constantly. They've just told another lie that I've heard on your programme, that we've refused to negotiate. I have met every single transport minister that's relevant to my industries, the rail minister, the bus minister, the maritime minister about issues. We will meet with government ministers any time, night or day, as long as they come to the table in a constructive approach.
OK, but you say that, and you say that grant shaps would be welcome at the table, but you're also quoted as saying that you wouldn't be seen dead negotiating with a Tory government. So which one is it?
Well, that's just nonsense. I don't know where you got that from, whether you've seen me say that. That has just been made up by the Tory press office and is being regurgitated by various media outlets. I meet with them all of the time. I've met grant shaps. I've met all of those ministers. We will talk to anyone that's got a constructive input into the dispute or has got influence over a settlement.
Why do you think grant shaps would tell us on Sky that he said that you wouldn't be seen dead meeting with a Tory government? Why would he say that if you hadn't said it?
I've no idea. You'd have to ask him. You might want to ask grant shaps why he's used pseudonyms in the past to cover up his identity. I don't know what's motivating Tory ministers.
Oh, come on.
But I do know. But I do know that they have a strange relationship with the truth, including in Parliament and on the record and on the media.
OK, talk to me about what your message is to the travelling public today. Some who are children who will be missing their exams could well have an impact on their future. Some of them who need to get back to work, having 2 years of COVID, and some people who could be going to hospital appointments, potentially having surgery, won't be able to do that and could die as a result of these strikes.
Well, I think you're being dramatic that railway workers are going to make hospital patients die. We have to give statutory notice of 2 weeks before we take industrial action. Preparations can be made. We've taken 4 weeks since the ballot mandate was returned, and we've been available to negotiate a settlement all through that time, as we are today and as we were up till 7:30, 8 o'clock last night. My message to the travelling public is that we're very sorry for the disruption that's been caused. We don't want to do that. We want to get a settlement to this dispute. But like everyone else, many members of the travelling public are suffering from the austerity imposed by the government, both in the private sector and the public sector. Profits are rampant, dividends are up, shares are up. The only people that aren't making any money at the moment are working people around Britain who are struggling. They're struggling in full-time work, taking state benefits, and some of them are having to use food banks. We need to get a settlement to that, and the British worker needs a pay rise. They need job security, decent conditions, and a square deal in general. If we can get that, we won't have to have the disruption in the British economy that we've got now and which may develop across the summer.
What would be your advice to other unions who are potentially considering balloting for strike action as well? Would you support them in that?
My advice to the unions is to campaign on the issues. And ultimately, if the government and the employers do not change their direction, I believe that more ballots for strike action are inevitable and more action is inevitable. And what I would say to trade union leaders and trade union activists is we need to coordinate and synchronise our campaigning so that we can rebalance the inequalities in our society. I think I'm knocking at an open door on that, because the trade union leaders across the TUC and across Britain are telling me that they want to join this campaign. We had a massive rally on Saturday on these issues. Working people are crying out for leadership and direction. The Labour Party can contribute to that, but it's going to be the trade unions that make the difference in this equation at the moment.
What do you mean by synchronising?
Well, we need to coordinate the action. So we need mass rallies, we need people on the streets, we need protests in every town and city in Britain. And if we have to have industrial action, we should coordinate that industrial action so that it has the most effect possible.
We heard from David Blunkett, a Labour politician previously, as you know, previously in the Cabinet. He said, your union, are taking us back to the 1970s.
Well, he's talking nonsense. He's out of touch, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. I started work in the 1970s.
But you're talking about coordinating strike action by... Yeah, but you're talking about coordinating strike action with a number of unions bringing the country to a halt.
No, I'm talking about coordinating strike action so that we get effective campaigning so that British workers can get a square deal off corporate Britain, who are raking in the profits. The problem with inflation in this country is people profiteering. So if we can get a deal with all of these companies, we won't have to have strike action. It's because we've been too passive over the last decade or so that workers have found themselves exploited. It's because of the lack of action and the lack of coordination. That's why British workers are suffering. It's why companies can take advantage. It's why we've got fire and rehire right across this economy. We've got outsourcing and precarious work. So it's obvious that we need coordinated action because we need to rebalance society.
Yeah, but Mr. Lynch, the whole point of coordinated action would be, I'm guessing, to bring the country to a halt. Otherwise, why would you do it?
No, the point of coordinated action is to get an effective negotiating position at the table with the employers. I don't know what it is you're suggesting. Are you saying that workers should passively accept the reduction in wages, the stripping out of terms and conditions, extended hours and precarious employment? If we want a stable society where people can guarantee their jobs, where they can look to progress themselves in our society, then we need strong trade unions. It seems to me that all the media want to do is spout Tory lines, that everything that the trade unions do is destructive. We've got the 5-day week, we've got public holidays, we've got holiday agreements, we've got pensions, we've got women's rights, we've got equalities laws, all because of what the trade unions do and have done through our history. We have been the most progressive and democratic force in this society, and we intend to continue to do that.
OK, Mr. Lynch, I would also hope that you'd be able to have a robust discussion without name-calling, but there we are. Tell me how much you're asking for as a union. What pay rise do you want?
Well, I'll negotiate that with employers. You know the figures. The Network Rail figure at the time it should have been settled was 7.1. I'm telling you, if you let me finish. The Network Rail figure in December should have been 7.1, and the train operating companies was between 7 and 8. We'll negotiate on that. There's lots of ways to put value into a package, and we'll deal with the employers on that basis.
What would you accept?
Well, I'm not going to discuss that with you. I'll discuss that with the people at the negotiating table. I don't negotiate on the street with a media presenter, because you're not the person negotiating with me, so I'll deal with the employers on that.
Well, negotiations are not going very well, are they? And I think the British public wants to know what's going on. So I'm asking you what the union would accept.
Well, I'm not going to deal with that with you. I will deal with the employers. We negotiate with them. It's not very respectful to the employers if we're trying to put together a package that's not just about money, it's about the conditions that our members serve under, and it's about their futures, and it's about the redundancies that we're faced with in this industry. That will all form part of a package and a negotiated settlement. So I'll deal with them on that, and I won't attempt to negotiate standing on the pavement at Euston.
Well, I would have thought you'd be happy to negotiate anywhere as long as you manage to sort this out for your members. How much have you been offered?
Well, can I, you know what we've been offered? If you read the press releases, we've been offered 2% by all of the companies, and there's a further 1% available if we accept all of the conditions, including the redundancies and the stripping back of conditions of service. And that's not acceptable to our people.
I don't know what you've been offered, which is why I asked you, because according to some of this morning's papers, you've been offered 3% plus another 1% if the guidelines are met. So is it 2% or 3% that you've been offered as a baseline?
It's 2% we've been offered as a baseline by both sets of companies.
OK, thank you for clarifying that. What would your advice be to... Thank you. I'm glad you clarified it. I'm just putting it to you that other people are suggesting otherwise, and you're the man who in the know, so I'm glad you clarified that for me. What's your advice to RMT members on picket lines if agency staff were going to try to get through that picket line?
Well, there aren't any agency staff. You can see behind me, there's no agency staff available. Agency staff can't carry out the work of my members. They're highly skilled, safety-critical workers working in engineering, railway operations, signalling high-speed trains, complicated setups. There are no agency workers available that can replace our members. This is one of the myths that Grant Shapps is perpetuating because he has problems with reality, I think, sometimes. There are no agency workers coming here to work today. There is a complete lockdown of the railway on London Underground, and the only people that are working are managers that have been trained up in a couple of hours to take this forward. As it happens, the managers' union is balloting from yesterday as well because they're facing exactly the same problems. So we think the problems on the railway are going to escalate. ASLEF are going to be balloting soon. I think Unite are going to ballot. So the problems are getting worse and worse. And so the government has got to deal with that. But there are no agency workers here. There's nobody crossing our picket line. And our
Not today,
action
Mr.
is
Lynch, but there might be.
From the north of Scotland to the south of Cornwall.
I understand that, Mr. Lynch, and that's certainly the case today. But, you know, will it still be the case if after this week you still get nowhere with the negotiations? The government is saying that they are going to bring in agency workers. My question to you is, I'm guessing that some of your members will still stay on the picket lines. What will they do if agency workers try to cross those picket lines?
Well, we will picket them. What do you think we'll do? We run a picket line and we'll ask them not to go to work. Do you not know how a picket line works?
What if they do anyway? I very much know how a picket line works. I'm much older than I look, Mr. Lynch. What will picketing involve?
Well, you can see what picketing involves. I can't believe this line of questioning. Picketing is standing outside the workplace to try and encourage people who want to go to work not to go to work. What else do you think it involves?
And what if they want... Well, I just wondered what else it might involve, because I very well remember the picket lines of the 1980s,
where are you going with your...
Mr. Lynch. I'm asking you what your members would do, Mr. Lynch.
Which picket lines are you talking about?
The miners' strikes. Miners' strike.
Yeah. Well, does it look like the miners' strike? What
no,
are you talking about?
No, it doesn't, Mr. Lynch, and I'm just asking, I'm just to clarify.
Seems to have gone off into the world of the surreal.
No, Mr. Lynch, and I'm sorry if you feel the need to ridicule me, but I'm just asking you what you expect your members to do.
But your questions
if agency
are
workers...
verging into the nonsense.
I'm asking you...
Picket as effectively as we can.
And what does that involve?
Look, there it is. That's what it involves.
So you won't stop agency workers crossing the picket line?
We will try to stop agency workers crossing the picket line by asking them not to go to work. What is it you're suggesting we will do?
I'm just asking you. I'm trying to clarify for the benefit of the British public who are being stopped from travelling around the country, Mr. Lynch. I'm just trying to clarify exactly what your members would do. Ask politely. Thank you for...
I'm replying to you politely.
Want to answer the question?
What we will...
OK, Mr. Lynch.
I've answered the question about 6 times. If there are people trying to cross the picket line, we ask them not to cross it.
I'm asking questions on behalf of my viewers this morning, Mr. Lynch. I'm very sorry if you find it offensive.
Well, you seem to have got lost in your questions, it seems to me.
No, I haven't. Well, perhaps I could just ask it just once more, see how you feel about it. If agency workers want to cross the picket lines so that people can go about their work and their business and travel around the country, your members will ask them not to cross. If they continue to want to cross, then you will allow them to do so. Yes or no?
We won't allow them to do so. It's up to them whether they do so or not. We will ask them, under the laws of this land, not to cross the picket line and not to be strike breakers. But if agency workers think they can go into a signalling centre or operate a train they're going to have a bit of a problem, aren't they? So what do you think these agency workers are going to do when they report and have crossed the picket line? They're not trained to do the work.
I'm not sure, because it's not my area of expertise.
Probably illegal for them to attempt to do it.
Just one final question before I let you go, because I know you've got a very busy day. You've got a very busy day ahead of you, so let me just ask you one final question. If the 3 strikes of this week do not amount to a 7.1% pay rise offer being offered to your members, will you go on strike again?
Yes, we will go on strike again if we don't get a settlement to the issues. So after this phase of action, we will review the situation. We'll look at where the negotiating position is. We'll continue to talk to the companies at every opportunity. And if we need to take further industrial action, that's what we'll do.
It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Mr. Lynch, this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can chat in person sometime very soon. Thank you.